So, if you plan to work anywhere near the corporate world, I can practically guarantee that you will face a need to make ethical choices. It can be small, as excluding something minor from your report because your supervisor asked you to hold it back, or turn a blind eye at a coworker that made an inappropriate comment about someone. Or it can be as big as you being pressured to participate in a corruption scheme in your organization. And in all these cases, you will need to choose what to do. Participate, escape, or expose. Like most working people, I've been in these situations many times, and I know this heavy feeling, a mix of fear and hesitation, when you feel what is the right thing to do, but everything around you pushes you to do otherwise. And the magnitude of the situations increase the higher we get in a corporate ladder. Now, here's the thing. Ethics is not a law, which means that for different people, the right answer will be different. Each of us have our own perception of what's right or wrong, our own moral compass that tells us what to do when we face a moral dilemma. But sometimes, for some reason, although we know what is right, it is incredibly hard to follow this inner voice, even for highly ethical people. Let's break it down. Almost every company's design involves a hierarchy of individuals. They occupy roles with different responsibilities and levels of power. Every day, all these people, including ourselves, are making decisions on behalf of the company we work for. We all, as employees, are expected to act in our company's best interest, know and follow a corporate code of conduct and company's values. Many companies nowadays have well-formulated values that are designed to support your decision-making and show you the example of a right behavior. If in personal life we can kind of decide which rules to follow, apart from the law, of course, business ethics is stricter. And on paper, it sounds very simple if you don't know what to do. If you find yourself in a situation that is ethically ambiguous, just follow the code of conduct, follow the corporate values, follow your personal principles. But if it's that simple, why unethical behavior is still happening? What if people around you violate these rules slightly all the time? Just everyone, a little bit, and it has always been like that. What if you're judged if you're not doing the same? What if you even bullied for that? What if, when we spot an unethical behavior, we actually risk losing our job if we try to fight back? And does that justify us participating in things that we find unethical? I think the more we look for these answers, the more complicated it gets. And even on MBA, a specialized education for business leaders, they're not really answering these questions. Now, of course, they tell you to do the right thing, but if it's that simple, if everyone knows it, why people are still failing to do it? Why, if, for example, the company is cooking the books, not a single person in this whole long chain in a financial department didn't say anything, although all of them knew about it? There is a ton of research that explores factors that make it difficult for us to respond in ethically challenging situations according to our values. And the most common factor is, of course, the environment. There is a classical, although controversial, Milgram experiment where participants had to electroshock other person, who was of course not electroshocked in reality, whenever this person make a mistake on a task. And the intensity of this electroshock was increasing every single time. Spoiler, the majority did it despite seeing other people suffering. Even people who are very far from the field have heard about very famous Stanford prison experiment, where participants have been randomly assigned to a roles of either prisoner or the guard. And although everyone knew it was an experiment, guards at some point became very abusive towards prisoners. They even used the physical punishment, while the prisoners became passive and helpless. This, in line with many other studies, demonstrate that people can be pressured by social situations to act in a way that is inconsistent with their values. And many people, when reading about these experiments, actually interpret them incorrectly. They say, that's a proof that we're all rotten inside, and a stressful situation just reveals this true dark human nature. But that's not true. These studies just prove that we are socially influenced creatures, and a specific situation or environment can influence us both negatively and positively. Now, let me explain why is this actually happening. In real life, to operate efficiently in social situations, people often rely on cognitive shortcuts, on things that we call a rule of thumb, for example, to make decisions quicker. However, these cognitive shortcuts can make us sometimes skip the parts when we actively think if what we're about to do is ethical or not, especially when there is a social pressure or a potential personal gain. Also, when we work for a company where its values and goals are kind of personally close to our hearts, we actively engage in an unethical behavior statistically more often. And it happens because we tend to overlook ethical considerations in order to achieve this big goal that we deeply believe in. Now, does this mean that the only option that we have is to accept our weak nature and just forget about our principles altogether? And the answer is, of course, no. We are intelligent people and we can and should fight things like that. First, we need to remember that businesses are very different. Companies have different ethics, and it's actually not black and white, but rather a spectrum. Some companies have a high ethical standards in their core, and some don't. So it is extremely important to choose a company that won't pressure you to do things that you're not okay with. Secondly, acting according to our principles is kind of like a muscle. For example, if we always escape even a small ethically challenging situation, there is a low chance that we will have a strength to fight back in a bigger one. So we can practice noticing, reflecting, and fighting back in a smaller scale situations, where the pressure is not that high and the cost of the mistake is not that high. Third way is to make ethical considerations more prominent in a decision making. As managers, we can emphasize the importance of values and even actively encourage people in our teams to think about potential ethical implications of their decisions. And of course, we can create organizational cultures that encourage employees to speak up when they spot an unethical behavior. I want to finish with this. We are not responsible for what other people do, but we are responsible for our own actions. So we can choose not to participate in something that we consider unethical. Show the courage and do what we believe is the right thing. Good luck to all of us!